This is Harry Murray at Murray's Fly Shop in Edinburg, Virginia. Today we're going to talk about nymph fishing for smallmouth bass in the rivers that we have here in Virginia. In this particular shot, Dr. Burslem is doing just what Charlie Brooks taught me to do in hole number 2 on the Madison River in Montana for big brown trout. It's a technique that we actually identified in the old original Brooks book as the Brooks method. I've made a few minor changes in it, and I call it swing nymphing. What Dr. Burslem is going to do, standing right there with that river running to his right, he's going to cast to position number 1, splat. He's going to drop his bass nymph right there, and with the rod tip held up, he's going to swing parallel to him so that nymph will ride right along the bottom where you see arrow number 1. There's a real good chance that Bill's going to get a strike in there. More than likely now he's going to feel this. He's not going to see this strike as much as he is feeling it, because as you see there in his rod hand, he's got a tight line from that rod hand all the way down to the nymph. That bass is going to pick that nymph up and pow, Bill's got him. Okay, he just landed that, released it right where he's standing. He's made cast number 2 upstream and a little further out. Oh, how far? 35, 40 feet. Spot number 2 out there is 40 feet from where he's standing. He's going to let that nymph sink to the bottom. Very, very important that that nymph get right straight down on the stream bottom. He's not going to pick it up yet now. He's letting it sink. And then he's going to pivot himself as the current carries it right where you see arrow number 2 drifting, right along the bottom. About where you see that arrow end is where that bass is going to pick that nymph up and bow. Bill nails him right there because, again, he's got a tight line from the line hand down, and he feels that strike. He lands that bass right where he is. Zap. Cast number 3 goes right where you see it, a little bit closer to that further bank. And again, he's going to let it sink. Oh, that water out there is probably 5 feet deep. So he's going to let that sink down to the bottom. He's going to pivot with it, and as the current pushes it down, he's going to swing with it, and he's going to feel that strike in the rod ham. Zap, he's got that. And Bill will continue doing that. That current now, of course, obviously is running from left to right. And Bill is going to keep working up the river, up the river, up the river with that same technique. Very, very effective and very easy to learn in that you're feeling these strikes. You do not have to see that strike, which is a boogaboo in all nymph fishing, but Bill's going to feel that, and he could go on up the river for another half mile doing that exact thing. But that's fishing a bass nymph for the smallmouth bass. Now, what you just saw, Bill was fishing that Stonefly nymph with the swing nymph technique that old Charlie Brooks taught me out west. That he was using the swing nymphing method. He's feeling the strikes and catching the bass. Now, the photo you see here is the same boy. This is Dr. Burslem casting straight up into that riffle. Stoneflies live in that kind of water. Cobblestone, say softball to volleyball size is where the stonefly nymphs live. And what he's doing is casting his fly so it lands right under that riffle at spot number 1. That's going to drift back down. Now he's going to use the Murray's nymph leaders that have the built-in indicators. Now, in this case, Bill is watching those indicators on our trout nymph leader. There are 2 of those tube-type indicators. He's casting right up under that riffle. Let it, yeah, he's getting tight to it now. He's going to be tight on this all the way down, watching those indicators. If that indicator stops, he's going to sock it to him. Strip it right back down. He's going to pick that up and cast up to spot number 2. And again, Bill's going to be tight to it all the way down to those indicators, watching those indicators, because when that bass picks it up, the indicator is going to stop, and when Bill sees that, he's going to sock it to him, both with the rod and the line hand. Maybe land one at number 2. Number 3, he's going to go right back up, because see that current coming up above? That's what's carrying the nutrients for the stonefly nymph themselves. So Bill is going to let that drift down. Again, he's watching to see that, and he'll continue that all the way over to the left. That riffle continues to his left about another 50 feet. He'll keep doing that all the way over to the bank using that same upstream dead drift stonefly technique. Now here you'll see a shot of me fishing in the South Fork of the Shenandoah River, where the caddis nymphs are so prolific in and around those grass beds. My first cast would be down to spot number 1. I'll strip it back to me. You see how my line hand goes across the fingers of the rod hand, and how my line hand is just almost jerking that thing. It's going to jerking it back about a 6-inch pull every 5 seconds, and that's going to swim it right back up the river. I'll pick that up and zap, cast right over to spot number 2, and again with my line hand I'm going to strip that back, short spurts, because that's the way the caddis go through there. But they're in that grass beds, and that's what I'm really concentrating on. I'm not really fishing the empty water, but I want to be right against that grass. Next cast would be over to number 3, and I'm stripping that back toward me in the same fashion. Then at that point, I want to cover that nice water that I see further out. So I'll wade over in the direction that arrow is leading. I'll wade over there probably about 30 feet. Then my cast would be out to spot number 4. And again, I'm using that short stripping motion to cause that caddis fly to swim up through there, land that bass, zap down to spot number 5, and I'm using the technique. Now, I'm not going to quit just because my numbers quit. I'm going to keep doing this all the way down the far side of that river. I'll wade down maybe 40 to 50 feet off the bank. I'm going to continue that technique just as far down as you can see the water, and it will catch a lot of bass on that caddisfly nymph. Okay, this is sort of a weird one. It is so simple, it shouldn't be effective, but it is. The rubber leg bass nymph, when those bass hit that thing, it almost explodes out there in the water because those little rubber legs are kicking and jumping every which way. Jeff is wading down the river. He's doing this. Water's running, by the way, to the left, running from right to the left. Jeff is wading down this side, casting over close to this bank where I'm taking this photo, and he's going to strip it out in probably about little maybe 3 or 4 inch burst about every 5 seconds. And those rubber legs will go every which way. Now there's a ledge running across there that you can clearly see. Jeff wants to swim that right in front of those ledges. Smallmouth are really suckers to get in front of and behind ledges. So Jeff wants to swim that through in front of that ledge, catch that bass right in there. Then he'll pick it up and cast down to spot number 2. Now he's swimming that. Now remember, that water's flowing to the left. He's going to cast over number 2 and strip it across the same way, over to number 3, over number 4, and he has covered all of that water. in all probability, he'll catch 4 or 5 bass in there doing that. And then after he's moved that, he's going to wade on down in the direction you see the arrow leading. And he wants to get down to those spots number 5 and 6, which are over in that shade. Smallmouth really lean toward the shade. And he'll do the same technique back there in spot number 5 and number 6 with that rubber leg bass nymph, and he'll have fantastic fishing in there. All right, we're going to talk about our Hellgrammite here, but before I attack this photo in front of you, I want to remind you that what we did with that Stonefly, where Dr. Burslem was fishing in under that ledge upstream dead drift, Jeff could do that same thing right here. So there, you can do the upstream dead drift with a Hellgrammite because that Hellgrammite can swim just as well as a minnow can. So Jeff could do that where he is, but I want to show you this because it's an easier technique than upstream dead drift nymphing. That current is moving from right to left. Jeff would wade into the spot you see him standing right there. His first cast would be to that spot we have marked for you, and he'll swim that across the stream. Remember, I said these guys can swim. He can swim that across. Now, this is what I have going on in my smallmouth schools. The upstream dead drift nymph might be a little more than the average bear can handle, but anybody can do this, and the bass are going to nail that Hellgrammite as it swims across that current. Jeff will land that bass right there at spot number 1. He'll land him where he is, not even move, not move out of there at all, but he'll cast out to spot number 2 and swim that across. He wants it on the stream bottom, as deep as he can get it, as slow as he can. Remember, the current's pumping this thing like crazy anyway. And you're going to swim that across. Jeff would catch another bass there, pick that up, and go back to spot number 3 and use the same technique. If that current continues, and I know that it does for about another, the best part of 100 feet down through there, Jeff could continue doing that, working down that stream, using that same technique. And this is the technique that I use in the smallmouth schools because it's easy to learn and it's very effective. Damselflies are all over the place where you have these grass beds. They live in that grass as the nymph form. They climb up that grass just like climbing a ladder. They get up on the tips and they fly away. All right, we're after that guy that's down in the bottom. Now, from where Jeff is, you see spot number 1 over here at the bottom. All right, that's where Jeff is going to catch his first fish. There are going to be bass around that grass. He's going to cast over to spot number 1 and just crawl it very, very slowly across there. Land that bass, release him where he is, then cast out to spot number 2, a few feet beyond it, and those bass are right around that grass. Go out to spot number 3 and out around those grass beds. There are going to be bass everywhere. Then he's going to walk down to the casting position number 2. From where he is, he's going to stay back there. He isn't coming out against the water now. If he got out there too far, he'd spook those bass. But he's going to walk down just exactly where you see him headed there, down to spot number 2. He's going to cast out to the spot number 4. See all that thick grass? In that thick grass right between Jeff and spot number 4, probably 50 to 80 damselfly nymphs in through there. So he is going to catch a couple good bass right there, land those, zap right out to spot number 5. He's got bass all over those grass beds. So he's going to work on out and then head his way down the river doing exactly the same thing you see him doing there. But you always want to try to drop your damselfly nymph as close to the grass as you can and be ready for the strike right away, because you may get that strike in the first 2 seconds. We have an abundance of dragonfly nymphs on the stream bottom in the north and south fork of the Shenandoah River. All that timber you see on that hillside, that's a whole mountain going up in front of that lady. Those timbers fall in there, they rot, they break up, but they make perfect habitat for the dragonfly nymphs. What I had this lady do from where she's standing, she cast almost straight into the bank against far side where you see spot number 1. DB caught this is DB Waterman, by the way. DB caught a real nice bass right in there, landed it, didn't move far at all, made a second cast over toward that far bank where all that debris is, caught another one right in through there. Then I had her wade downstream just a little bit, maybe 30 feet from where she is, because I wanted her to cover that far side. And she cast over where number 3 is, picked up more bass over in there. She continued that technique all the way down the river, picking up bass right after another one. A story I've got to tell you here because it's true and it drives this point home so well. I had a 2-day bass school right in that same spot. We had our automobiles parked back there where I'm taking this picture. Had a boy in the class, good fisherman, a boy named Jim Snyder. And he raised a good bass over on the far side to sculp and streamer. The bass wouldn't take it. He saw it. I didn't see it, but he saw that bass, a big bass. He said, "Can I go on downstream, come back and try him again?" I said, "Sure, Jim, do whatever seems to work." So he came back up about a half hour later. That time he had a tapley bass bug on. Shoves it back over in this downfall of junk, you might say, in water maybe waist deep. And the bass comes out, looks at it, no good, wouldn't play ball at all. So, he saw him twice. He had a shot at him twice that first day. Well, the second day we parked right there, and he came over to the side where we were getting our tackle rigged. And he said, "Do you mind if I walk upstream and go across the river and come down to where that bass was?" I said, "Jim, that sounds like a good try. Go down through there and give it a try and try some kind of different fly." He said, "Well, what do you think about trying a dragonfly down in there?" I said, "Well, you got all kind of brush back in there. There are going to be plenty of dragonflies down there." So Jim goes up the river, crosses the river, comes down, we must have been 100 yards down from where he crossed, crawled into where he had raised that bass the previous day, cast his dragonfly nymph right out into all that pile of brush. Zap! That bass took that dragonfly right away, and he landed the biggest bass we had in the school for the next 2 days. But that is a very effective technique. Wherever you've got debris like you're seeing on that far bank, there are going to be dragonfly nymphs all along that stream bottom. Those are just some of the ways we fish for smallmouth bass. During the summer, all summer long, we have half-day bass schools and we have full-day bass schools where we teach you the casting techniques, the knots that we use, the techniques for fishing the nymphs that you've seen today, and also the techniques for fishing topwater bugs and streamers and the whole thing. So if you're interested in any of these schools that we do, we can just refer to them as our on-the-stream bass schools. But they go on all through June, July, August, and into September, both in the half day and the full day. You can sign up online. Rhonda's got them on the website. You can sign up there, or you can just call us. But I think it's something you'd enjoy tremendously because it is such a tremendous amount of fun. Thank you very much. This is Harry Murray at Murray's Fly Shop in Edinburg, Virginia. Just call us if you have any questions on any of this. Thank you very much for listening.